It's a Thursday morning and a green start to the day for the markets as Nifty has opened gap up. It's back above 22,000. The broader markets, they are seeing one of their strongest opening in weeks. Both mid and small caps are up 1.5 to 2%. And I mean, we'll get to what's driving the markets higher in just a bit from now. Spoiler alert, it's the global cues. Actually, let's address the elephant in the room head first. We were awaiting, federal policy's decision on interest rates. The verdict is out. They have maintained interest rates. I think, that's nothing is surprising about that. But Amit, I'll come to you. Interest rates status quo is maintained. What's driving the markets higher then?
It's a broader cue that there will be 3 rate cuts. Now, probably the markets are expecting the first to come sooner than they expected. So, probably sooner than July.
Right.
Yes.
June.
Sooner than June.
Yeah.
But June, July was where the markets were expecting them. The broader picture on gradual and bumpy disinflation has remained intact.
Right.
So, they had beaten all the figures, whether it was PPI, CPI, which we spoke earlier on, had beaten expectations. But despite that, the Fed has remained intact on their policy on rate cuts,
right.
Not getting too panicky, using a very heavy term, that to have an early rate cut. That's not going to happen. But the markets have reacted positively across the board. We had one red yesterday, not a single red today. It's all in the green. Dow Jones closed in the positive at 1.03%, S&P 0.89%, Nasdaq 1.25% in the positive. Stock 600 remained unchanged from the previous day's closing.
It's absolutely flat.
Absolutely flat. Hang Seng is up 1.75%. So the optimism has basically rubbed on even onto the Asian markets. Nikkei was in the news. For a brief period, they jumped 700 points to have an all-time intraday high.
Record high also.
Record high. So, right now they are up 1.67%. Tesla, I had named yesterday, was in the red, but look at the choppy feature of that kind of a stock. It is up, it closed up 2.53%. So, it's green everywhere. There is optimism with the decisions that the Fed has basically indicated.
All right. And, the status quo as far as the interest rates go was expected. I think none of us were surprised by the Fed maintaining the rates. But I think what came as a surprise, and a positive surprise at that, is that Mr. Powell is sounding more dovish in his commentary. Just a couple of things I'll point out that stood out for me. Mr. Powell said that the recent stronger inflation data won't stop the Federal Reserve from cutting interest rates. The projection is still 3 rate cuts in calendar 2024, as Amit pointed out. Fed now sees the inflation print that came out in January and February as merely a bump in the road, meaning that they don't expect it to become a trend. I mean, unless, essentially what they're saying is that unless, that inflation print comes in like really ugly, they, won't deviate from that 3 interest rate cuts, the verdict that they had put out, the decision that they had made earlier. And, May, I think no one is expecting a rate cut, very less people are, unless, Federal Reserve decides to surprise us and goes for a nominal sort of a rate cut, a 15-point rate cut or something. But June is where the markets are factoring in a rate cut now. As a result, the US 10-year Treasury yields, they slipped marginally. The last time I checked, it was around the 4.28% mark. The dollar index, that has also reversed and now it's into losses. It has slipped by about 0.3%. As we speak, it sits at 103.22 levels.